Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the Rendell Center's exciting literature-based mock trial program. It's one of the most engaging ways to help your students learn about the judicial system and to have fun. We're going to show you how to introduce and hold successful literature-based mock trials in your classroom. But before we can do that, let's answer the question, what is a literature-based mock trial?
Our literature-based mock trials offer students the opportunity to deepen their understanding of the work of literature while learning about the judicial system. The mock trial is an effective learning tool. It helps students develop confidence, critical thinking skills, teamwork, and communication skills, in addition to increasing a student's proficiency in basic skills such as reading, writing, speaking, analyzing, listening, and reasoning, all in an interactive and engaging environment.
A literature-based mock trial is when you take a piece of literature, a good piece of literature, and turn it into a trial. You take the conflict that the characters have or the problem that comes up in the story, and you put the character on trial for whatever it is that they did. Any good piece of literature is going to have a good conflict, and it's going to have an opportunity to make a trial out of it. I've been doing literature-based mock trials for I think 4 or 5 years. And I've seen over the years the good effects that it has on the students and on me. It makes my teaching more interesting too.
My students get so excited when they know that there are actual attorneys coming into our classroom. And I remember once saying, well, we're going to have attorneys to come in to help you develop your questions. And they said, Ms. Williams, what's an attorney? And I said, oh, well, that's a fancy word for a lawyer. And they were like, oh. And when that day came and the attorneys actually came into the classroom, they were over the moon. They were super excited that attorneys came into our classroom just to work with them.
A literature-based mock trial is an opportunity for volunteers, especially attorneys, to be able to go into classrooms and develop a mock trial with the students based on curriculum they are already reading. A literature-based mock trial really gives students an opportunity to learn about the judicial system, and it really piques their interest, hopefully, into learning more about the civic system in the United States.
I think the reason why I started doing literature-based mock trial is because I wanted to find a different way to try to teach the children civic responsibility. I hope that in the future, by teaching literature-based mock trials, that in the future we're creating civic-minded adults.
The literature-based mock trial is designed to focus on the literature that the students are reading in the classroom. The primary goal is to enrich the students' learning experience with the literature while teaching them about the American government and its judicial system. The Rendell Center's literature-based mock trial handbook is your guide, your recipe book to conducting successful, enjoyable mock trials in your classroom. Please have the handbook ready during this video. We will refer to it as we continue our discussion. The handbook is downloadable from our website at www.rendellcenter.org. The beginning lessons are designed to introduce the concept of a mock trial, build common vocabulary, strengthen the students' understanding of the concept of rules and laws, and provide an opportunity to get to know the students. At the end of Lesson 1, the students will understand the difference between a rule and a law, discover the challenges to writing a rule, know and understand vocabulary used in connection with a trial, know and understand the roles of people in a trial, understand what a literature-based mock trial is. When introducing a new concept to our youngest citizens, it's important to connect it to concepts with which the young student is familiar. To that end, the first lesson begins with activities that address the concept of rules and laws. The Thinking About Rules and Laws information sheet and Writing a Rule activity are in your literature-based mock trial handbook on pages 7 and 8. You should lead the whole class in a discussion of these worksheets. It is important for students to learn about rules and laws and the differences between rules and laws. After discussing the sheet, choose one of the activities that follow in the handbook. They are no hats in the classroom, no food in the classroom, or no animals in the library. These exercises help the students better understand the challenges of writing a rule and law. Each are linked to a short children's book that can be read prior to the discussion, which will bring the scenario to life for the students. For example, in the book Library Lion by Michelle Knudsen, the librarian, Miss Merriweather, had a good rule about no running in the library. Is that a good rule to have? Are there exceptions? The book is about an exception to the rule. The worksheet has other exceptions for you to discuss with your students. At the end of Lesson 2, students will know and understand vocabulary used in connection with a trial. Know and understand the roles of the people in a trial. Understand what a literature-based mock trial is. An important step in learning about our judicial system is establishing a common language and clearing up any misinformation students might have around the vocabulary of the courtroom. Using the chart Creating a Common Language, work through the judicial terms, and then have the student do the What We Know About a Trial sheet. These are found on pages 12 and 13 of the Literature-Based Mock Trial Handbook. The handbook contains 2 short scripted literature-based mock trials, which can be used as a way to introduce the mock trial experience to students. One is a criminal trial. The other is a civil case. Scripted trials read like a play, with individuals assigned to read specific parts. Students not reading a part should be assigned as members of the jury. You also have the jury pick a foreperson, the person who tells the class the verdict. The jury can be polled, and each member of the jury tells why he or she arrived at his or her verdict. Additional scripted mock trials can be found on our website. We are now ready to begin the process of writing your own mock trial. This will take a series of 5 lessons. At the end of these lessons, students will understand the purpose for and be able to write an opening statement, direct questions, leading questions, and a closing statement for their mock trial. Develop skills in deliberating. Understand the importance of a jury. Develop an understanding of the judicial system. Gain a deeper understanding of a piece of classroom or classic literature. Develop higher-level thinking skills, critical analysis of problems, strategic thinking, and questioning. Develop skills in preparing and organizing materials.
The first step in writing a literature-based mock trial is choosing the piece of literature on which to base the trial. There are no hard and fast rules for how to decide what classroom or classic novel or short story to choose. It can be a piece that is a classroom favorite, or it can be a challenging piece that a mock trial experience would make easier to comprehend. The most important aspect of the piece for this project is that it contains a clear-cut conflict and that the conflict is connected to a law. For example, let's consider a read aloud of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. There can be a literature-based mock trial in which Goldilocks is tried for criminal trespass. The law on which the mock trial is based states a person commits an offense of criminal trespass if he or she knowingly enters a property without permission. The next step is developing the fact packet. The fact packet tells the story of the conflict by naming the characters from the story who are involved in the conflict and describing the details of what happened. The fact packet can also include characters or events that are added to the story to ensure there are 2 clear-cut sides to the conflict. For example, think again about Goldilocks and developing a trial in which she has been accused of criminal trespass. To make sure that there are 2 clear-cut sides to the trial, you could add a neighbor of the Bears as an eyewitness and/or a fairy tale friend of Goldilocks. Maybe someone like Little Red Riding Hood, who accompanied Goldilocks on her walk to the Bear's house. The key here is to provide in your fact packet 3 to 4 witnesses for each side. In other words, witnesses whose testimony supports the idea that Goldilocks is guilty of criminal trespass, and witnesses whose testimony supports the idea that Goldilocks is not guilty. The fact packet can be developed with your whole class, by the teacher, or as a partnership in person or electronically with the Rendell Center.
You should begin the session by reading the fact packet to the students. Then, invite the students to brainstorm the conflicts in the fact packets and identify the one on which they would like to base their trial. After deciding on the conflict, use the Law for Our Mock Trial activity on page 41 in the handbook with the students to identify the law that was broken. Then, have the students research the law. With the whole class, identify the witnesses for the defense and the witnesses for the prosecution using the Witness Statements activity sheet on page 42. Have the students come up with statements for each witness. Now is a good time to divide the class into sides. This can be done randomly or play the Take a Stand game. To do this, have the students stand and say whether they believe the individual is guilty or not guilty. If time allows, the entire class can stand lining up across the front of the classroom with the students who are not sure in the middle. Then, group the students into two sides based upon their beliefs. One side becomes the defense and the other the prosecution. Remind the students that if you are trying to prove that the defendant is not guilty, you are on the defense side. If you are trying to prove that the defendant is guilty, you are on the side of the prosecution. Using the activity sheet found in the handbook on page 44, have the students work together in small groups to develop the opening statement. The opening statement should be like a story. One cannot argue in the opening statement. The purpose of the opening statement is to state the facts and foreshadow what the trial will be about. The higher the grade level with whom you are working, the more independent this activity can be. Most opening statements should contain the following: an introduction by the attorney, theory of the case, theme, explanation of the charge and defense, introduction of the major witnesses and the key evidence, conclusion requesting a verdict. Have the students read the Art of Questioning sheet or read it to them. The sheet can be found on page 46. Emphasize the characteristics of both types of questions, the standard questions that a lawyer asks his or her witness when they first begin, and the goal the students must keep in mind when developing their questions. Is the defendant guilty or not guilty? Review with the students that there are two kinds of questions. There are direct questions and open-ended questions that guide the witnesses to tell their side of the story. A lawyer asks direct questions of his or her witnesses. These questions give lawyers the opportunity to bring out important points for their side. Then there are leading questions. In asking this type of question, the lawyers are leading the witnesses to get to the answer that the lawyers want. This is a question that suggests an answer, usually one as simple as a yes or a no. Lawyers ask leading questions when given the opportunity to cross-examine a witness from the other side. Direct questions should include who, what, when, why. Leading questions should include the words and phrases such as, isn't it true? Won't you admit? Would it be right to say? Is it correct then? Work through the Art of Questioning activity sheet with your class and additional sheets on pages 46 through 52 of the Mock Trial Handbook, which contains sample exercises on writing questions you can use with your students. Often, this is one of the hardest concepts for students to understand. They are used to answering questions, not formulating questions on their own. This lesson might take multiple sessions. Once you have completed the Art of Questioning activity sheet and are comfortable that the students understand the different types of questions, divide each side into small groups, with each group coming up with direct questions for one of their witnesses and cross-examination questions for one of the opposing side's witnesses. Sometimes it's helpful to do one witness with a class as a whole. A closing statement is a powerful summary of what your side has proven. Write your closing statement going step by step and retelling the jury what each of your witnesses has proven. The closing should also include any discrepancies in the opposition's case. If the opposition said they would do or show something in their opening, but did not, it is a good idea to point this out in your closing statement as well. Remember, you cannot add anything in the closing statement that has not already been stated in the trial. With each of the component parts done, opening, questions, and closing, it is now time to type up the script. Depending on the student's level, they can assist with this exercise. Each side can do their own questions to maintain some confidentiality, or the whole script can be given to everyone. Roles can now be chosen: lawyer, witness, and bailiff. Jury members can be selected from the class or from another class. You should discuss the important role a jury plays in the process. The script should include jury instructions for the judge. Pages 55 and 56 provide valuable information you can share with your students on the jury process and verdict. The day of the trial is here. You can do the trial in the classroom, school library, or courtroom. Many courthouses are happy to have students come in, and judges are more than happy to preside over the event. If you are in a classroom or a school library, try and set up the room as close to a courtroom as possible.
As a federal judge and grandmother, there is nothing more amazing than to see the young eyes of a fifth grader light up as he or she approaches the witness stand to question a witness, or as they work on a script. If you're a teacher or a lawyer, I encourage you to join us on the literature-based mock trial journey. It is a rewarding experience. Just as reading a book opens a world for a student, a mock trial will open additional worlds in terms of content and experience.
My students learn the way we work, the way the government works, the way the courtroom works. They also learn civic responsibility. They learn what a jury is. They learn what a judge does. They learn what civil and what criminal means. They learn what a bailiff does. And they also get a chance to see all the job opportunities that may be available to them in the future. Maybe they might want to grow up to be an attorney or a judge or perhaps even a bailiff. So all of this comes into play when we do mock trials in our classrooms.
The students learn so much from a literature-based mock trial. In sixth grade, working together is kind of a difficult thing, and they have to work on questioning and working together as a group or as a team. And this is sort of interesting. They don't always get the side that they want. They have to argue a side that they might not believe in, but it teaches really good critical thinking strategies and being able to argue a different side and being able to think of something from a different point of view. And then there's also just to have the knowledge of how a trial works and what happens, who are the people in a trial, who are the people in a courtroom situation. And another thing that kids will really be able to work on and learn during literature-based mock trial is their communication skills. They'll be working on their listening skills because they'll have to listen to each other and listen to what the characters are saying and what they're coming up with in their questions, be able to write all of the things that they have to do. They have to be able to communicate out loud to someone else and be able to use those communication skills. So communication is a huge part of learning in a literature-based mock trial.
It is astounding how much our youngest citizens already know and how much more they want to learn. And our literature-based mock trial provides a perfect, unique learning opportunity.
Thanks for watching. We hope that you will get started right away and implement the Rendell Center's literature-based mock trials into your classroom. Remember, the free downloadable mock trial handbook is your guide, your step-by-step reference to having successful literature-based mock trial experiences with your students.